So what does Deancross do that's different to other types of services?
So Deancross is set up to work with this term called personality disorder. And I think that's very important because in a way, the way we see our work is we work with individuals who have particular aspects to their personality, which makes their lives just more complicated and difficult. So although it's, badged as a personality disorder service, and there's so much controversy around the term, we see ourselves as working with individuals whose lives are just made more difficult because of their very extreme ways of thinking or feeling or relating to other people. So we are, we do work with what's called a psychiatric diagnosis, but I'm very clear that in terms of the way that we think about the individuals we work with, we're more interested in how are they as people, what is it about their personalities which is making things just difficult or their lives less productive or happy or fulfilling than it could be.
Nova?
So I'm absolutely in relation to what Tennyson has said, that actually, it is about kind of, an idea of how somebody's difficulties can be understood in terms of a personality disorder. But actually, I think what we offer is very much about what the service user comes to Deancross with and what their presenting difficulties are, and very much focus on those emotional difficulties and relationships. And, I think the unique thing about Deancross is about actually that we offer MBT, which is a specialist evidence-based model for individuals that have difficulties that can be understood as personality disorder, and that we offer that in a very clear way with very clear kind of guidelines, if that makes sense. So a group and individual sessions, and that actually the intervention that we offer is very specific and is a very specific model to help improve the lives of the individuals that come to Deancross.
Could you say what MBT is for people that don't know what that is?
Absolutely. I suppose I use the term so often. So it's called mentalization-based therapy, and I can talk much more about it if that's helpful.
So when somebody comes to Deancross, what can they expect?
We offer an assessment first for everybody that comes into Deancross, and that can be quite an extended assessment. So we really want to understand what somebody's struggling with in their life, in the here and now. So we're very much about the here and now and the difficulties somebody has. And the assessment is about understanding whether those difficulties can be understood as a personality disorder, and then really spending time thinking with them about actually what do they want to change in their lives. And we're very focused on thinking about the changes, so quite actively around that in relation to the presenting problems they come to us. After assessment, and if we feel that Deancross can help and is the right therapy, and it's a joint collaboration in terms of whether we think Deancross is the correct service, then we very much use the MBT, so mentalization based. So it's an initial group intervention, so what we call a preparation group, or MBTI it's called, which is about a 9-week group where we think about what MBT is and really prepare somebody for going into the main program, which is an 18-month group program with individual sessions. So we have the preparation group, which is 9 weeks. It's psychoeducation, but also a sense of what it might be like to be in a therapy group at Deancross. After that, then somebody, if we've got to the point where actually we want to continue and they want to continue, then they'd have an 18-month group intervention, which is weekly groups and with that individual sessions. Within that 18 months that we review how somebody's doing, constantly thinking with them about how they're getting on with their goals, how the therapy is kind of working and helping them. And then after that 18 months, then the main therapy stops and we have step-down services, noting that actually 18 months of an intensive therapy is incredibly important, but also important that we think about how somebody stops coming and really does think about you know, the work that they've done in the therapy at Deancross and how they can use that in their lives and continue that work and continue having the life that they want.
Tennyson, anything to add to that?
I mean, I think, you know, just to add a bit to what Nova said, which I entirely agree with, I think the important thing is if you're thinking about personality, if you think of you and I, we're very complex beings. And therefore, when we think about our assessment and our work, we think of ourselves in sort of at different levels. And I think what links to in terms of the assessment is when we do assessment, it's both a psychotherapeutic, a psychological, and a psychiatric assessment. So I think, you know, part of the strength of the service is that we work very much as a multidisciplinary team where we really value the skills and the thinking, because everyone thinks in a slightly different way based on their training. And I think that's part of the strength of, you know, NHS teams of Deancross, in that we do have different disciplines that can think together. So that's very important. But I think also we do, and I think it's very important that we work, as Nova, you know, is indicating, from an evidence-based way, approach in a structured way. So our assessments are very rigorous. But I suppose as anyone working in the NHS or as a clinician, you want to work with the human aspect of the person. So, for example, I assessed someone yesterday who was just being very, very cut off and very sort of say, well, you tell me what to do. And I think, you know, the kind of question that I asked him, which said, look, you know, in terms of where you are with your life now, are things the way you want them to be? And let's just think about that. And that managed to cut through some of the very sort of cold way that he was relating. So what I really want to emphasize is I think the strength of you know, Deancross, and I think of so many other services within ELFT, is the ability to see our patients as human beings. I think that's very, very important. The other thing I want to add is in terms of therapy, you know, again, the importance of NHS services using evidence-based treatment. So Nova's, you know, talked about mentalization-based therapy. I do want to also say that we have got another treatment called transference focused psychotherapy. And again, Deancross and ELFT is ahead of the curve in having this more novel treatment in now being, you know, used in the UK. And this is a treatment which is particularly helpful for individuals that have problems with narcissism. Now, you know, not wanting to get into too much detail about it, but just for us to note that narcissism is, and if we think of what's happening in 2020 in the world, you know, in terms of politically, it really is a condition which is a very, very important one. And I think it's important that ELFT recognizes that within the trust, we do have a service which has expertise and uses a model which actually is particularly useful for that very, very difficult, you know, condition that some individuals have.
Could you just in a short way explain narcissism for people?
Yeah, and you know, what I want to say is that all of us are narcissistic. You know, for us to think that we can mount a good service does require a certain degree of self-confidence and faith in oneself. So I think that's very important because it goes back to our work, that we're working with individuals with a personality. It's just that some of the traits are so strong that it becomes a bit difficult, and therefore doctors call it a disorder. Yeah, that's why I want to emphasize that in terms of narcissism, it's a sense of faith in oneself and needing to do it oneself. And the difficulty with individuals with very strong aspects of narcissism, and again, we can think politically, what's happening with the world with, you know, elections, important elections just about to happen. some individuals have such a desperate need to feel that they can do it themselves, and have such a vulnerable sense if they feel that they can't do it all themselves, that's a very important aspect of what is could be seen as a pathology of a narcissistic individual, where they have an absolute need to only depend on themselves. And one can very much understand from the early life experience of some of the individuals we meet, where the parenting has been so cold or so neglectful, it's so understandable that the child would feel the need to sort it out themselves. So you can see what was initially adaptive becomes finally a real difficulty for the individual as they become adults, and they find it very difficult to form relationships, because they don't feel the ability to open up and form a relationship where one becomes codependent in a way.
Thank you for that. I know that Deancross has always worked as a big group coming together every day. How have you been doing all of the work during COVID?
So Nova, I think that's a very good one for you as operational lead, and you think so much about how we work with patients and the team, so maybe that's a good one for you too.
And one of the things that made me smile is a sense of us being a big team, and actually we're quite a small team. I think we do a lot and provide a lot, but we're quite small in some ways. But absolutely working as a team is so core to the work we do at Deancross. That to provide what we provide to individuals who struggle in the world, it's so important that we do work in a team. And in the situation we're in at the moment, that's been quite a shift for us, that we would often meet together and think together, both informally in the office, but also together in specific meetings. And I think one of the things that we've continued to do in terms of the team and ensuring that we feel as a team is continue to have a reflective space regularly where we meet online, but also that we do have people working from home. We have a rota to ensure there's people in the office, but also, there are, as a clinician, I'm also working at home some days, and that every day we meet together and have a checkout meeting to check out what's happened, and if there's anything actually that we need to think together as a team. But again, I think one of our strengths is also that we support each other, and we can think if something does come up that is challenging, or we're concerned about somebody, that we can call one another and think together, and that there is another person always in the building that we can check things out with. So again, I think that cohesion has remained. And one of the questions you asked earlier, Jen, it was about new people coming in, and we're a very established team. Many of us have been here over 5 years, and we have had a new member of staff join us, and we have doctors that rotate into the team. And I think, again, we've thought about that in terms of people being in the office, ensuring that they've met all of the team, and that we do kind of have individual meetings and supervisions with them, and that, we think about them in the team and ensuring they do feel connected to us. I don't know, again, Tennyson, if you've got anything to add in relation to those things.
Not really. I think it's more the sense of the work that we do, as clinicians in the NHS is difficult. And I think it's this ability to recognize that none of us can absolutely know everything. And if we feel anxious, that we can speak to our colleagues, which is so important.
And how have the service users found it? My final question.
I mean, my sense is that it's been quite a leap, really, that we would see individuals face to face in a group and in individual sessions and for assessment. And we have moved online for all of those things, initially on the telephone, and then as quickly as we could, I think, using online platforms. And I think once the technologies, some of the kind of little gripes and kind of things started to be resolved, actually my sense is that people have continued in the therapy. and that it is a shift, and it's not like being face to face in the room, but that it has still got the quality of being a good assessment, a good effective treatment, that there is a sense of a continuation of what we're offering, if that makes some sense. That's my sense of being a clinician, seeing individuals and being in some of the groups as well, that, you know, it's not without its difficulties, but I think we have worked together with the service users to make the online offer of treatment and assessment the best that it can be.
Tennyson, anything to add?
You know, I've clearly been more limited, that we can't meet our patients face to face, and that, you know, we need to really accept that that makes our work more difficult, and for the patients. But I also want to say that I've been very surprised, and, you know, positively surprised, that we can do very effective work remotely, and that sometimes if patients have found difficulty with the technology, I also think that it might have also been an aspect which they might have found difficult face to face. You know, it's not just the technology, but let's really accept that it does make it an additional complicating factor. But I think that what's so important, given, you know, where the NHS is now, is for us to have confidence that we can deliver a good enough service remotely, and at times a service which is more than good enough. I feel that it is something that we can hold on to and have faith in, that we can continue delivering, you know, a good service as a trust.
And one of the things I was going to add is that I think for some people that have come to Deancross and have been referred to as, actually having online assessments and groups has maybe allowed them to engage and start the engagement with us that might have been more difficult face to face, that, you know, it might have been an opportunity for some as well as a challenge for others.
So thank you very, very much. You've been brilliant, the pair of you. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.